The lights inside the massive theater dimmed one by one until only a single golden spotlight remained glowing over the center of the stage. Thousands of people filled the arena, their voices blending into a restless wave of excitement. Cameras moved across the cheering crowd while giant LED screens flashed images of performers who had already delivered impressive acts that night. The competition had been fierce, the energy electric, and the judges looked both entertained and exhausted after hours of non-stop performances. But then the host walked slowly toward center stage with a grin that hinted something unforgettable was about to happen. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced dramatically, "our next performer traveled all the way from the Philippines. She's here tonight to prove that music has no borders. Please welcome, Sheryn Regis." The crowd applauded politely at first. Many people in the audience had never heard her name before. A few Filipino fans near the front screamed wildly, waving tiny Philippine flags with tears already forming in their eyes. Somewhere backstage, Sheryn closed her eyes for one final breath. Her hands trembled, not because she lacked confidence, but because she understood exactly what this moment meant. For years, she had dreamed about standing on an American stage this grand. She had sung in packed arenas back home, inspired millions with her voice, and built a loyal fanbase across Asia. Yet tonight felt different. Tonight was not about fame. It was not about charts, awards, or headlines. Tonight was about heart. The curtain slowly opened. Sheryn stepped into the spotlight wearing a breathtaking silver gown that shimmered like starlight beneath the stage lights. The audience immediately quieted. Her calm smile carried elegance, humility, and strength all at once. The judges leaned forward with curiosity. Simon Cowell glanced at the paper in front of him. "Interesting," he muttered quietly. One judge smiled warmly. "She looks nervous. She's either about to surprise us," another judge whispered, "or completely fall apart." Sheryn reached the microphone. For a moment, she said nothing. The silence stretched. Then she softly spoke. "Good evening, America. I come from the Philippines, and tonight I want to sing not only for myself, but for every dreamer who was told they were too far away to be seen." The audience erupted into applause. Simon nodded slightly. "Okay," he said. "Now I'm interested." The music began. A single piano note echoed through the theater. Then another, and another. The arrangement was hauntingly beautiful, slow and emotional. The crowd settled into complete silence as Sheryn lowered her head and prepared to sing. When the first note left her mouth, the entire atmosphere changed instantly. Gasps exploded across the arena. The sound that emerged was rich, powerful, crystal clear, and filled with emotion so intense it seemed to freeze time itself. Her voice soared effortlessly through the theater, wrapping around every seat, every camera, every heartbeat inside the building. People stared in shock. One woman in the audience covered her mouth. A man near the judges whispered, "No way." Simon's eyebrows lifted immediately. The judges exchanged stunned glances. Within 10 seconds, everyone understood the same thing. This was not just another singer. This was something rare. Sheryn's voice carried incredible control, but it was the emotion behind every lyric that truly shook the room. Each word sounded deeply personal, as if she had lived every line of the song. Her tone moved gracefully from soft vulnerability to explosive power without losing even a trace of precision. The crowd remained completely silent. Not because they were bored. Because they were mesmerized. As the song built toward the first chorus, the orchestra swelled behind her. The lights shifted into deep blue and silver tones while the giant screens zoomed in on Sheryn's face. There were tears in her eyes. But she kept singing. And when she finally unleashed the chorus, the theater absolutely exploded. The note she delivered was so massive, so emotionally charged, that several audience members jumped to their feet instantly. Screams echoed from every direction. The judges looked stunned. Simon actually leaned backward in his chair. "Oh my God," one judge whispered. The camera caught audience members crying openly. A young Filipino-American girl near the front row held her hands over her chest while tears rolled down her cheeks. Her father hugged her tightly as they both watched the stage in disbelief. Sheryn wasn't just singing. She was telling a story through every breath. The performance became more powerful with every passing second. Her vocals climbed higher and higher, yet every note remained flawless. There was no fear in her voice now. No hesitation. Only passion. Only truth. Only fire. Halfway through the performance, the music softened suddenly. The orchestra faded until only piano remained. Sheryn closed her eyes and sang the next verse almost like a whisper. The entire arena leaned in. Even the camera operators seemed emotionally affected. I spent so many years wondering if the world would ever hear me, she sang softly. Her voice cracked with raw emotion. That tiny imperfection somehow made the moment even more beautiful. People felt it. Every struggle, every sacrifice, every sleepless night chasing impossible dreams. Backstage crew members stopped working just to watch the monitor screens. One stage assistant wiped away tears. "She's unbelievable," he whispered. Then came the bridge. The music began rising again. Drums entered. Strings intensified. The lights turned gold. And Sheryn slowly lifted her head. Everyone sensed something huge was coming. Simon stared at the stage without blinking. The audience held their breath. Then Sheryn unleashed a vocal run so breathtaking that the entire theater erupted before she even finished it. The note climbed impossibly high. Higher, higher, and somehow she still had more power left. The audience exploded into screaming chaos. People jumped to their feet. The judges stood up instinctively. One judge slapped the table repeatedly in disbelief. Another simply shook her head while laughing emotionally. "This is insane," someone shouted from the crowd. But Sheryn wasn't finished. Not even close. As the final chorus began, confetti-like lights sparkled across the ceiling while the orchestra reached full intensity. Sheryn planted her feet firmly on the stage and delivered the performance of her life. Her voice thundered through the arena with unstoppable force. Yet somehow, despite all the power, every note remained emotional and human. That was what made the moment unforgettable. Anyone could scream loudly, but very few people could make an entire arena feel something this deeply. Audience members cried openly. Strangers hugged each other. Phones recorded desperately as people realized they were witnessing a once-in-a-lifetime performance. The final note arrived, and Sheryn held it. The sound rang through the theater like pure lightning. 10 seconds. 12 seconds. 15 seconds. The audience lost their minds completely. By the time she finished, the entire arena was already standing. The final note echoed away. Silence followed. Not ordinary silence. The kind of silence created when people are too shocked to react immediately. Sheryn lowered the microphone slowly. Tears rolled down her face. Then the building erupted. The standing ovation was deafening. People screamed, clapped, cried, and stomped their feet so loudly that the floor itself seemed to shake. The judges remained standing while cheering wildly. Simon Cowell looked genuinely speechless. For several moments, he simply stared at Sheryn. Then he finally leaned toward his microphone. "You know," he began slowly, "I've heard thousands of singers in my life." The crowd quieted immediately. "But every once in a while," he continued, "someone walks onto this stage and reminds us why music matters in the first place." The audience applauded loudly. Simon pointed toward her. "That," he said firmly, "was one of the best vocal performances we've ever had here." The theater exploded again. Sheryn covered her mouth in disbelief. Another judge leaned forward emotionally. "I have chills all over my body," she said. "Your voice is beautiful, yes, but your heart reached every single person in this room tonight." The third judge smiled through tears. "You didn't just sing a song," she said. "You gave us a moment we'll never forget." The crowd roared once more. Backstage, producers exchanged amazed reactions. Social media teams were already posting clips online. Within minutes, short videos of Sheryn's performance began spreading across the internet at unbelievable speed. People on social media wrote things like, "WHO is this woman. The best voice I've heard in years. She deserves a Grammy immediately. I'm crying and I don't even know why." Filipinos around the world started flooding comment sections with pride and excitement. "This is our queen. Philippines is so proud of you. Goosebumps from start to finish." News pages began reposting clips. Reaction channels uploaded emotional breakdowns. Even celebrities started sharing the performance online. Meanwhile, on stage, Sheryn stood frozen while the audience continued cheering. The host walked beside her laughing in disbelief. "I think America just fell in love with you," he joked. The audience screamed even louder. Sheryn finally spoke through tears. "Thank you so much," she whispered. I waited my whole life for a moment like this. Simon smiled. Well, he replied, it was worth the wait. That line alone sent the crowd into another frenzy. As Sheryn walked backstage, crew members applauded loudly from both sides of the hallway. Some hugged her, others simply stared at her in amazement. One producer shook his head. You have no idea what just happened out there, he said. But the truth was, she did. Because for the first time in years, she no longer felt invisible. Later that night, clips of her performance reached millions of views. People from different countries reacted emotionally. Music coaches analyzed her technique. Professional singers praised her control. Fans called it the performance of the year. One famous vocal instructor posted, Sheryn Regis combines technical brilliance with emotional honesty in a way very few artists can. Another celebrity tweeted, I just watched Sheryn Regis sing and now I need 5 business days to recover emotionally. The internet couldn't stop talking about her. Television shows replayed the performance repeatedly. Radio hosts discussed her incredible vocal power. Even people who normally ignored talent competitions suddenly became obsessed with the clip. And through it all, Sheryn remained humble. The next morning, she sat quietly in a hotel room staring out the window at the New York skyline. Her phone buzzed non-stop with messages. Friends, family, fans, reporters, everyone wanted to talk to her. But for a moment, she simply sat there in silence. She remembered all the years when opportunities disappeared, the moments she doubted herself, the times she wondered if people had forgotten her, the sacrifices, the heartbreak, the exhaustion, and now somehow, after all those years, the world was listening again. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. It was one of the producers. You need to see this, he said excitedly. He handed her a tablet. Her performance video had already surpassed 10 million views overnight. Sheryn stared in shock. Comments flooded endlessly beneath the video. I got goosebumps. This woman deserves global recognition. I cried watching this at 2 a.m. The best voice of the night, no question. The producer laughed. You're trending everywhere. Sheryn smiled softly. But deep inside, the attention mattered less than something else. For the first time in a very long time, she felt truly understood. Later that evening, she returned to the theater for interviews. Crowds had gathered outside hoping to see her. Fans screamed her name. Some held handmade signs. Others carried Philippine flags proudly. When she stepped out of the car, the crowd erupted immediately. We love you, Sheryn. You made us proud. Best performance ever. She waved emotionally while security guided her inside. One young fan broke through the crowd just enough to hand her a small folded note. Sheryn accepted it kindly before entering the building. Inside her dressing room, she unfolded the paper. The handwriting was messy but sincere. It read, I'm Filipino too. Sometimes I feel invisible in America. Tonight you made me feel proud of who I am. Thank you. Sheryn pressed the note against her chest. And cried. Because that was the true power of music. Not trophies. Not fame. Not headlines. Connection. The ability to make another human being feel seen. Days passed, but the performance only became more legendary online. People called it iconic. Reaction videos continued flooding YouTube. Music critics praised the emotional honesty of her delivery. Even people who had never heard of her before suddenly became devoted fans. Talk show hosts invited her for interviews. Record labels expressed interest. Concert promoters reached out immediately. The world wanted more. Yet the most emotional moment came several days later during the next live show. The host welcomed Sheryn back onto the stage. The audience instantly stood up cheering before she even spoke. The energy inside the theater felt different now. This time, people knew exactly who she was. The host smiled. Your performance last week became one of the most viewed clips we've ever had online, he announced. The audience roared. And tonight, he added, we want to show you something special. The giant screens behind them suddenly lit up. Video messages from fans around the world began playing. People from the Philippines, Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, Dubai, Singapore, and across the United States. A nurse said she watched the performance after a difficult hospital shift and cried from relief. A teenager said Sheryn inspired her not to give up on singing. An elderly Filipino couple said her voice reminded them of home. A little girl smiled at the camera and declared proudly, "One day I want to sing like Sheryn." By the end of the montage, the entire audience was emotional. Sheryn herself could barely hold back tears. Simon leaned toward her. "This," he said quietly, "is what happens when talent becomes something bigger than entertainment." The audience applauded warmly. Sheryn nodded slowly. "I used to think success meant being famous," she admitted. "But now I realize success is touching people's hearts." The crowd erupted again. That night, as she prepared for another performance, she stood alone backstage for a few moments. The sounds of the audience echoed faintly beyond the curtain. Her heartbeat slowed. She smiled softly to herself. No matter what happened next, nobody could ever take this moment away from her. She had crossed oceans. She had faced doubt. She had carried years of hope inside her heart. And now, standing on one of the biggest stages in America, she had proven something unforgettable. Great talent can come from anywhere. Dreams do not belong only to the lucky. And sometimes, all it takes is one powerful song to make the entire world stop and listen. The stage manager signaled, "It's time." Sheryn took one final breath. Then she stepped forward toward the light once again while thousands of voices erupted into thunderous applause. Because now everyone in America knew her name. And after that unforgettable night, nobody would ever forget it.